Hello. So I will speak on behalf of Age Platform Europe, which is the European network of organizations of older people. So organizations advocating for the rights and the well-being of older persons in Europe. So as you can imagine, long-term care is a central topic we deal with in our work, in our advocacy work. So we are quite happy that this project took place and that we have now more evidence showing to what extent long-term care can also be social investment. The challenges in long-term care were mentioned a couple of times already, in terms of access, in terms of quality, affordability of services. Something that was not mentioned is that this is also, and well, that's our key message as a civil society organization, this is also a human rights challenge. A couple of years ago, there was some research done by the European Network of National Human Rights Institutions that showed that in long-term care services, there is a lack of awareness of how to respect the dignity and the human rights of those needing care. And we also know that older people with insufficient access to quality care services, they suffer situations that qualify as breaches of human dignity. So it is important for us to put that at the core of our discussions when it comes to long-term care. So certainly we think that the social investment approach can help shift the care systems from very, let's say, precarious models of care delivery where, well, long-term care has been underfunded, has been, let's say, put in the hands of families organizing themselves to deliver care to older relatives, care services with a very paternalistic approach regarding the way they were treating older persons without really taking into account the personal, individual preferences of people needing care, from very medical approaches to care, ignoring completely the need for socialization, for inclusion in the community of people in need of care. So that's the old model that is still very much, let's say, the one that exists across Europe in many services. So a shift from that vision to a vision where, care is delivered in a person-centered way, and the needs and the preferences of the individual are at the core of the way the service is delivered. And also services that put much more the stress on rehabilitation, on prevention, and that really apply the principles of social investment. So we think that the social investment approach was and is a good approach in operating that shift. We are very happy that the European Commission was proposing this social investment package in 2013, and Bart van Herke kind of certified the death of the social investment package. Not that you wanted it, but but well, we were all kind of fearing that the European Commission wouldn't be really continuing with this approach, and that has been confirmed since the Juncker Commission took over. From the point of view of our work at European level, this is a bit, well, let's say, difficult, because we are building our expertise, we are building our arguments around an approach, thinking this is the new thing that will be imposing itself, this social investment approach. And, well, some years later, we find ourselves that the European Commission is actually abandoning this approach somehow, or not really insisting on it as much as we would wish. We believe that the European Pillar of Social Rights can be important, and this is certainly an opportunity we want to seize. And, well, a couple of hints were shared by the European Commission today on these indicators shared with the Social Protection Committee, etc. But we would like the European Commission to maybe get back to the cupboard, open it, and again take out from it the social investment package and see whether that can still again be useful to advance social policy at European level. And maybe I can end by pointing to a very interesting comment and very interesting part of the presentation of José Luis about society's willingness to pay. So that's central to these debates, of course. If we want care to be cheap, or if we are not willing to pay a lot for care, well, access will remain very low, quality will remain bad, and we will all need these services at some point in our lives, so we all have a personal interest in challenging this situation. And I would say that our role as NGO is precisely to kind of encourage society to be willing to pay more for care services. And we are currently having a campaign on ageism, which is this form of discrimination based on age that affects everyone at all stages of life, but we know that this is very especially the case in older age. And one of our aims is precisely to help society realize that we are all aging, and that at some point in our lives we will have some care needs, and that doesn't mean that our dignity and our human rights should be at stake.
Okay, that's a very good note to think we need to end on. Very grateful for all the speakers and the panelists who've sacrificed, I'm sure, many thoughts that they could have offered because of time constraints. Oh, we have a question, a point. Bob.
I have a question, a point, yes. Alan, thank you. No, because, Borja, I'm not sure that I certified the death of the social investment package. So I would just like to nuance that a little bit. So I tried to explain that the SIP was launched with lots of balloons and flags and firework in 2000, what was it, 13. Right? It didn't take off as a social policy framework, as Laszlo Andor had understood. It was then forgotten for, I would say, 5-6 years. Not forgotten, but put under the carpet by the new commission, because when a new politician comes in power, of course, he has to forget about what the predecessors did. And now it's being used again as not as a policy framework, but as a concept, a little bit as a supportive tool in the context of the European Pillar of Social Rights, but also the ESF plus the multi-annual financial framework. So it's not entirely dead, it just went under siege in a way. Just to nuance that, now I'm not sure whether what you say that you hope that the Commission will revisit the SIP now is a good idea, if I understood you correctly, because, I mean, I think the SIP has been completely absorbed into the European Pillar of Social Rights. Well, not completely, but partially absorbed into the pillar. I think it would be a very bad idea that next to the pillar, we have another social policy framework that is in competition, namely the SIP or whatever else. So I think we or you as stakeholders, you have more interest in hanging on to the pillar, making sure that it survives this commission, because there is absolutely no guarantee, of course, that the formal proclamation will will bring us beyond this commission. We don't know that. So I would really suggest to stakeholders hang on to the pillar and make sure that within this new policy framework, social investment is boosted. But we can discuss over lunch or beer or whatever.
Yeah, I think that's a discussion that will run, isn't it, for quite some time. But thank you again for your second talk. That's very welcome. I think we're going to draw things to a close because I think we need to leave the room. Do we not? Yeah. Are there any more quick points or comments that people want to make before? Continuing the debate.
Yeah, no, but maybe a very short response. No, I didn't want to be that strong in saying that you certified the death, of course not. But I'm not saying that strategically that's the good thing to do, to ask for the comeback of the social investment package, but I just think that the work that was done and the actions that the European Commission was planning in that field, that, well, somehow we need to see kind of how that fits into implementing and developing the European Pillar of Social Rights, because for us that's not really that clear. So clearly, strategically, now the priority certainly is making sure that the pillar survives and that the next Commission is keeping it, of course. Yeah.